Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. It's Wednesday, yes. Don't check your calendar. It's not Tuesday. Me and Liam haven't gone back in time or anything. We're obviously a day behind on all of our shows because of Newcastle playing on Monday night. But good evening, Liam.
You all right? Yeah, I'm hearing that Wednesday is the new Tuesday.
Wednesday, I saw you put that. Yeah, I've called you the prophet of the takeover. That's what I've called you. Like, so I'm just buying into this whole cult thing that's flying around Twitter. What I've decided tonight is, not that I get much of a chance to speak on this show anyway when you're on, we're just going to go straight to the questions. However, I do want to say thank you to Keith Calvin Smith. Now, Keith sent us this. Hold on. There we go. Can you see that? Newcastle United's Colin Vetch, the man who was Superman. There we go. 200 pages. And I've got to be honest, when someone sends us a book, I don't like to talk about it unless I've read it. And finding time to read a book when you're as busy as I am sometimes is very difficult. What a book. Couldn't put it down. My mate Rob dropped it off. It was a complimentary copy from Keith just before Christmas. Anyone who doesn't know who Colin Vetch is in Newcastle United's history, well, the man who was Superman is the title of the book. That is exactly what he was. Football League champions 1905, 1907, 1909 and the FA Cup winners medal in 1910. That's all I'm going to say. 200 pages of him, his life story. A journey with his book started when the author realised he lived in the house where this man had lived in Newcastle, and that's what started the journey. Amazing book, 200 pages, facts, figures, photographs coming out of every page. It's well worth reading. £35. Newcastle United's Colin Vetch, the man who was Superman. Look for it now, Google it. You might get a copy on Amazon if you're lucky, but Keith Calvin-Smith's done a cracking job. Paul Joannou at the football club has helped him as well. Well played, lads. Honestly, I'm a killer for history with Newcastle United. I do like to read about it. That's a superb book. It's a coffee table book. It's not one you'll be able to take on the train or on a day out in your bag. That's one which sits in the house and you pick up when you're bored. You're maybe knocking a little whiskey back and you want to look back on days when Newcastle United actually competed and won things. Well worth getting a copy of that book. Anyway, that's enough of the plugs. I hope he's happy with that. Thank you for sending us the freebie. Really, really appreciate it. And the nice message about all the shows that we do as well. I've had so many of them as well. Again, before we get to the questions, and I did promise, and I've just remembered, I did promise one guy in particular that I would read one message out. It's not very long, so we can get straight into the questions with Liam. But if I can find it, here we go. There we go. Okay, Steve, I've just watched your programme about the appalling abuse you've been subjected to, and you've deservedly come out of it with your head held high. I'm a massive fan of yours. Well done on going public with these tosspots who abuse you. Keep the faith, Mr. Wraith. You're a legend, Mick Charters. I'm not a legend, mate. I'm just somebody who does a podcast like lots of other people, but thanks very much. And he says, I hope you will mention this on one of your shows just to have a dig at the pathetic abuser, Steve. Stay safe, my friend. Michael Charters, I know you're watching. Thanks very much for the message. I do get a lot of them, and I've got to be honest, the positive messages far outweigh the negatives. I'm not somebody who's easily knocked down, but thanks very much, guys. Right, straight on to people's questions, Liam. Rather than dwelling on the horrendous result on Monday, let's go to Craig's question. Liam, do you think Ashley's more interested in trying to get the takeover through than he is sacking Bruce when he leaves? When if he leaves it too long, he could put his sale in jeopardy as he won't get 350 million.
So do I think they're so intrinsically linked? So it's a really difficult question to answer. But I think if he allows things to drift too far, then he is at risk of losing. I think Keith said it on your show, on Keith Patterson from NCSL said it on Friday. He talked about £150 million loss to the football club. I mean, it's quite incredible. The value of the football club, that's not just the value, that's the loss of money coming through the doors. The club itself would be devalued by potentially 200 million from where the Saudis are bidding PCP in the Rubens. So you've got to say that he can't let it drift. Do I think he's more interested in getting the takeover through? I do, yeah. I think that is his primary him and his lieutenants, that is his primary concern at the moment. But like I said, they are intrinsically linked, so there's got to be some care taken on things happening on the pitch, because things are really drifting, and there is a lot of concerns, and a lot of people out there are rightfully concerned about what they're seeing. One goal in 7 games is quite incredible. One goal from open play in 8 games. No win in 9. It really is sackable stuff, and I imagine would be on the cusp. We're at any other football club in any other situation. We're not on the cusp at this football club in this situation. But probably at least this is guesswork. Look, I don't know these as facts. Mike Ashley could turn around tomorrow, switch on and say, look, I've had enough of this guy. We need to do it. We're really at risk of losing X amount of hundreds of millions of pounds here. But I would suspect he'll probably at least get the next 3 games. And that's me saying at least. That's my prediction using history as a major factor. That he'll at least get the next 3 games. And Newcastle United realistically need to win at least one of those 3 games to keep the wolf from the door.
Okay, plenty of questions, Liam. So let's try and hammer through them. I know you made a New Year's resolution not to labour too long in answers. So we've got a lot coming in. So let's try and get through as many as we can tonight. John says, with the television rights issue being sorted in Saudi Arabia, is there any news regarding the takeover?
Well, officially that it isn't sorted, so I'll keep that one short. Until we know that it is definitely sorted, then I think applying that rule to the takeover is impossible.
Okay, Matt Mark says, Donald Trump left office today to Sinatra's My Way blaring out over the speaker system as he flew off in Air Force One. I wish Steve Bruce would do the same. I think a lot of people would be happy with that as well. Chippers says, good evening, Chippers. He says, what do you make of Clark getting a new 2-year deal, Liam?
I quite like that question before that you skipped over there, Steve. I'm just imagining it will be like a reverse Kevin Keegan chopper. Like the absolute opposite.
Yeah, Clark's been offered a contract. For those of you who don't know, he was in talks. It had gone quite quiet on that, and then bingo, today the club have announced he has got a 2-year extension to his contract at Newcastle.
Yeah, it's a good bit of business, really, isn't it? He's a really solid Premier League defender, has been a really good servant to Newcastle United, and I think it's a really positive move. I'd like to see Federico Fernandez tied down quite quickly afterwards, and the rest, if they weren't to give another deal out, wouldn't really concern me too much. I still like to think that there's something in Fabian Shaw. Yedlin, Murphy and Gale for me have got big doubts, so I wouldn't really be too concerned if they only handed one more deal out and gave it to Federico Fernandez.
Okay, Mark Heston says, good evening all. If Bruce was sacked, Liam, who would you like to see come in till the end of the season? Latest name on the hat, Mark Hughes, been mentioned. We discussed that on Ladies' Night, of course, last night. But if Bruce is sacked, who would you like to see come in? And maybe who would you expect to see come in? So
I've done a piece that went up on the Gazette at about 5 o'clock tea time that kind of went through the realistic runners and riders were Mike Ashley to pull the trigger, and Mark Hughes ranks highly in that. He really fits the Ashley type. Look, there's some really bad names in there that would fit the Ashley type too. The Tony Pulis and others as well. There's the likes of Marco Silva who are out of work, which would be a bit of a left field. Eddie Howe is the other one. Who are you saying would I like to see? There isn't really anybody that I would particularly like to see. There's nobody beyond in this Ashley regime. An Ashley appointment would be a Pulis, would be a Hughes, that type of manager. And Nigel Pearson, who finds himself out of work, of course, being caretaker manager twice before, for one game at a time. When Rhoda left and Allardyce left, so he knows the football club to an extent. It's a really tough choice. But what I've got to say is that I don't see things improving under Steve Bruce. And if things aren't going to improve under this man, then you've got to start asking the question, which I know a lot of fans out there are, is it better just to be anybody but Bruce? And I get that. I really get that argument. So could there be a bad appointment? Of course there could. There could be a good one. I think we're stuck with him for the short to medium term. But there isn't really a standout candidate out there, so I can't really answer your question because there's nobody who I would look at and say, look, he's the man that I would love to see replace him, because there isn't anybody who really fits the bill, who would guarantee keeping you up, for example, and would really be a massive improvement on a Steve Bruce. Although, like I say, at the moment, anybody would probably be an improvement.
Pete's wanting some transfer news, some incomings. He said, what positions are we actually targeting? There's been lots of speculation, but there doesn't seem to be anything concrete. Obviously, I've seen links with the Leicester midfielder. We're crying out for some creativity and some legs in there. The goalkeeping position, I would say, is sound. Back four, we could probably get away with. We could still do with maybe another left back to put pressure on Lewis, and I think we're overrun with right back for this season anyway. But centre midfielder and potentially even another forward, because the goals have dried up. You know what I mean? Or we need something at that top end of the pitch. But anybody with any concrete links?
Concrete links at this time of year are quite difficult to find. There's plenty of players linked. Do I think Newcastle United will sign anybody this window? The word from the club is no. To be honest, that's the word from the club. They're going to have to get rid of some players. Look, there's talk of Emil Kraft leaving. That would free up a place in the squad, and that would allow them to bring somebody in on loan. It's a position, as you said, they're awash with rank average right backs. And to be honest, of the three, he's the absolute worst. He doesn't serve any purpose in this squad for me. So if they could get rid of him, they should be sending him away. I won't be giving him away, never mind taking money for him, because I think he's awful. I genuinely think it was a really, really poor signing by this football club. Do I think they will sign anybody this window? I'm really sceptical. They've talked at the idea of how much COVID's affected the financial landscape at St James's Park. They've talked at the fact that it's difficult to get rid of players. I don't think Steve Bruce is particularly anticipating anybody coming in. That could all change. Very quickly, as we've seen. If they can get an Emil Kraft out the door, then great. If they can get rid of a Yedlin or whoever it may be, or a Dwight Gale, I'm not sure which way they'll do it. But if they can get rid of somebody off the books, that'll free things up. And I think that's what this squad needs. If we're not going to get a managerial change, and realistically, we're not going to get a takeover in enough time to really have an impact on this football club this season, in terms of transfers and things like that. So what I would say is that freshening up, just roll the dice, gamble, lose a couple of players who you might not always think there might be value to your squad, but if you can move things around, like a Gale or a Yedlin or whatever, and maybe bring a few players in just to freshen things up, it might be just enough. It might be just enough spark to get a result here or there, which is what they need.
Yeah, I'd agree. Big shout out to the sponsors. We've got over 700 watching tonight. Honestly, it blows me and Liam away every time we see how many's watching, and to have so many of you watching. Big thanks to oldcoachhousedistillery.co.uk, the world's first alcohol-free distillery. Visit their website, enter code OCHD to claim your introductory 10% discount and get the most out of your Mindful Dry January. And Ginesque is there, and if you want to see somebody drinking it live, get yourself onto the ladies' night show last night. Samantha had bought her bottle. It was delivered to Ireland and she is thoroughly loving it. So get yourself onto there. They're sponsoring our StreamYard application so we can broadcast these shows. And a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, who also make our wonderful t-shirts, which you can buy at newcastlelegends.com. If you're out and about walking the dog, get yourself onto iTunes and Spotify, and you can find us on there under NUFC Matters, and plenty of shows to catch up on as well. If you've missed the chat with the Supporters Trust, it's well worth a view. Just check playlists, look under fan shows. You will find us talking to Greg the chair and to other committee members. Well worth a listen that too. And don't forget, tonight we've also got at 9 o'clock a few of the NUFC Matters team are doing their own thing on the channel. I won't be involved. They're doing their own show, Loaded Football Weekly, talking about football but not Newcastle United. So a little bit break from the norm. Well worth a visit. And don't forget, we have the 5-minute rant starting again on Monday, 6 till 7. Your chance to come on the show. If you've got something to say, we'll send the link out. You come on. It's as simple as that. You get 5 minutes to rant. Well worth coming on. So plenty of content on this channel each and every day, 7 days a week, throughout lockdown, throughout the pandemic. We'll be here doing our stuff. So please keep supporting us. And if you do want to support us on the channel, then please just give us a like. Please give us a share. Or please comment. And to do that, you just need to click the little banner down on the right hand side. Click subscribe by rolling your finger or rolling your mouse over the top of that, and you can click like, click share, and click comment. That's great for us. That's all we need. All of it's free, and all of it helps us build and grow our community. Here we go again then. Gary Hasty. Good evening, lads. Liam, any idea on this mystery man Luke Edwards is saying is sitting waiting to bid if PIF falls through?
No idea. What I would say about it is, look, like, I read Luke's piece today. It was really good, actually. I really quite enjoyed it, and there was so much. It was really relevant when it comes to the idea of near 14 years of Mike Ashley, about how it is just perpetual disappointment, a constant rolling ticker tape of takeover now, no takeover now, no takeover, transfer window disappointment, just everything about the disappointment. And obviously he's covered Newcastle United more than most journalists on the patch, and he knows that all too well, how difficult it can be and how draining it can be for Newcastle United fans out there. What I would say effectively on the story itself with regards to takeover, he talked about an unnamed, unmentioned potential bidder who hasn't yet put a bid in. That's effectively what the story said, and was waiting in the wings to potentially put a bid in. Look, that's fine. There is a lot of interest. I know for a fact, having spoken to sources, that Newcastle United is a football club that attracts a lot of interest. You might think it doesn't, but it really does. It's a type of football club that has constant, to the lawyers that they employ, Dentons, they have constant requests to see if people can buy this football club. It is largely irrelevant at this stage who wants to buy Newcastle United, because there is only one bid in the box seat, and that is the majority PIF bid with led by PCP Capital Partners in conjunction with the Reuben brothers. They are the only bid in town. They're the only bid that Mike Ashley has considered, will consider, and is taking legal action to push through. So I hope that is quite a categoric answer with regards where we stand on this deal. I think the actions of buyer and seller, particularly seller, show that this is the only deal that's worth anything to him. It's the only deal he wants. It's the only deal that have come up and said, look, we want to buy your football club. He has the money. And there's been no question mark about where the money comes from. If it's there, how quick it can be there. These are big time dealers. They're big time people to buy a football club. And Mike Ashley is bowled over by them. He wants this deal. So anybody else can say, look, I can say I've got some money and I'm going to do my due diligence on Newcastle United. I haven't got the money to do it. And there's been chancellors like that over the period that have come up and have had absolutely nothing to back it up. So, yeah, look, fantastic story. Does this mystery bidder matter at this stage? No, not at all.
Fair enough. That's the answer to that question. Peter Davison says, nice to see another one of our championship winning players get a nice new contract, because that's where we're headed. Bruce out. Darren says, is it a worry that the new USA President, Joe Biden, yep, congratulations Joe, is a Biden Intel chief nominee and vows to release the Khashoggi murder report, which could affect the takeover?
There's been a lot of noise on social media about this the last day or so. It was largely irrelevant. It was a lot of media noise around it the first time round with the Khashoggi stuff. That doesn't mean it was an irrelevant point. What I'm saying, it was irrelevant and was not really taken into consideration. And it was not one of the reasons why this takeover bid faltered. So I don't anticipate it will be this time round.
Okay, fair enough. Paul Oxley says, why does Steve Bruce keep laughing after defeat?
Paul, it's not something I'd noticed, to be honest.
I think it's a nervous laughter.
Yeah, I don't imagine he's enjoying it. Look, I mean, there's been a lot of criticism. Are you really a Geordie? All this kind of thing thrown at Steve Bruce. And he is. And I'm not sticking up for him, but he can't be enjoying this. I think we're actually just seeing, look, this is a product of the Mike Ashley era. We're seeing a guy who looks like, given you look at his performances and results, does not have the tools to turn this team around. He's okay when he fits back to type, put a Rafa Benitez 5 at the back that can do the easy bit, the defending bit, the organisation bit. But he does not have the tools to then turn that side into an attacking force. He cannot get that out of them with a 5. He just has to stick with these 4. He's 4-4-2. That's the best way he is going to get results, and enough results to keep our heads above water this season.
Yeah, Liam says, would the buyer still be interested if we get relegated, Liam?
Look, there's been a lot of talk about this, and I know there was some noise coming out of PIF a while back saying, look, the deal would have went ahead no matter what last year. The more it dragged on and dragged on. I think it will be slightly different this time. I do, and I think there will be real concerns. I know there are real concerns about the club getting relegated with regard to this deal, because the football club is not worth anywhere near what the agreed price is if it drops out of this division. So, look, hopefully it doesn't go that far. Hopefully we get a decision and a deal in advance of that. But I would be very, very sceptical as to whether this deal goes ahead if Newcastle United drop out of the division.
Alan Thompson says, question, Liam, when were spectators allowed back into grounds? Why was Joe Linton allowed in on Monday? Yes, I get it. Tom Dixon, is there any other person interested in buying the club? Obviously, he's referring back to Luke Edwards' story today. But, have you heard of others? It's been an ongoing saga over the last year. But, I mean, is there anybody else? I mean, we had Henry Morris ring in bizarrely onto our show on the 5-minute rant at the weekend. Just saying he's still there, baby. But, yeah, I mean, is there anybody else, around?
Yes, there is people interested in buying the football club, but the only thing that matters is that Mike Ashley has no intention of even entertaining that until he either hands the keys over, but he won't have to entertain it, or this deal dies. Then he'll have to look at people in the eye, like the mystery man who's turned up today, or the mystery consortium, whatever it may be. He's going to have to look them in the eyes and say, look, I want to see the colour of your money. And he's done that to a fair few, or not him in particular, but people around him have done that. And people just haven't been able to deliver. The set of people who have been able to deliver is Amanda Stavely, Murda Gadusi, the Rubens, and PIF. They've been able to say, look, we want to buy a football club. Here's the money. And that's why Mike Ashley's so happy with this deal, because it's such a straightforward deal in that sense that's been clouded a lot by sort of forces outside of the norm, outside of the owners and directors test.
Okay, Nigel Pearson, would you take him in a relegation battle if Bruce got sacked?
You have to ask yourself, would it, like anybody asking those kind of questions, you have to ask yourself, do you believe Nigel Pearson has got the potential, or do you believe a Nigel Pearson managed side has got the potential to be better than this Steve Bruce Newcastle United? And look, the way I'm looking at it at the moment is I do not see where improvements are coming. Is he the man you would want to pin your hat on and say, even medium term, is he somebody you want to take it forward? Obviously not. This club has to aspire to better managers than that. But unfortunately, they're stuck with a manager that arguably isn't even as accomplished as somebody like a Nigel Pearson in relegation battles. So we'll have to wait and see. It's such a difficult choice for fans out there if you want to make a decision. Do you want Nigel Pearson or Steve Bruce? Or do you want Tony Pulis, or do you want Mark Hughes? God, we're scraping the barrel. But that's Mike Ashley's Newcastle United. That's just the way it is.
A lot of these probably didn't even want to come last time before Bruce. Even less chance of trying to attract them now during a relegation. But you never know. Bruce is certainly not doing himself any favours, and continues in the same fashion. He'll be out on his ear, and we're going to need to get somebody in. So we'll be interesting. Samir says, and it's a slightly different take on the question. He just says, would the buyers be in contact with Ashley regarding the potential relegation? Are the buyers likely to wait until we're mathematically safe before completing on the takeover? I mean, it's an interesting take. I mean, if Wheels in Motion have got to that stage where the takeover could be completed, would PIF hang back and wait and see whether Newcastle were in the Premier League before they completed the deal? Or are we past that stage? Do you think the deal's been done and, whatever happens, they'd still buy it?
It's the great unknown, Steve. Really, it's the great unknown that we don't know. We know that PIF have given that word that they are coming back with the cash when this deal's been cleared, a clear path for them to this takeover. Will they have second thoughts? Again, this is something that it's the great unknown. It's not a huge investment for PIF, but it is a huge investment in other ways. Financially, it isn't a massive deal, but in terms of the image that it will present of Saudi Arabia, it is a big deal. And I just don't believe that Saudi Arabia would want their flagship sporting first steps in the sporting world in the Western world would be with a championship side. I just don't see it.
Yep, okay, that's your question answered, Samir. Dave W says, Liam, any idea who it is on the video on Twitter walking to the centre circle with a cameraman? I think
No
was it?
idea.
It looked like ASM, didn't it?
Well, it did. Look, it does. It looks like somebody like ASM, given the sort of stuff that they're wearing. But it was. You see the stands, and obviously it looks like the Gallagher in the background of that video, and it's got the coverings on, so that would suggest it's post-COVID, which wouldn't be an Alan St. Maximin signing video. But do I think it's a signing in Newcastle United? I can only go off the information that I've been given at Newcastle United from Newcastle United themselves, sources there, and it is that they don't believe that any deal is closed. So I can't imagine it as in a video. So I really would stand down everybody on that one and look. If it turns out to be, and they've kept their cards really close to their chest, and they've pulled a rabbit out of the hat, then great. I'm happy to be surprised, but it doesn't sound as though it is.
Maybe it was a COVID rehearsal for a new signing, just in case they buy one. Hey, see,
dress rehearsal for a signing.
Put it this way: the skeleton staff up there have to keep themselves occupied somehow. There's nothing else going on. Mark,
Alan, you're not playing. Can you do us a favour? Come to the ground and will you just walk to the centre circle as if I'm signing you again?
Oh, it's probably the bloke from it could be the ticket office guy or the cleaner or something. God only knows. Mark says, would you expect Amanda, etc., to whisper in Mike's ear to sack Bruce? Do you think there's any outside influence? Is the communication and, they might be saying, well, we can't afford this. You need to think about changing him. And I'm presuming there'll be communication. Whether it'll be that influential, I'm not sure.
There's lines of communication. In any deal like this, you have to expect there will be. There are lines of communication, but will they be able to influence Mike Ashley in that way? Look, I'm reluctant to say they will. I'm not 100% certain that they will, because if and when they do manage to get into this football club, then they'll have their own ideas and they'll want to do their own thing. They'll want to make their own mark. And I imagine one of the first acts they would do would probably be getting rid of the current manager, simply because they want to sweep through and do their own thing. Is it something they might get Ashley to tidy up before he goes? Again, it's a real unknown. Look, they can apply pressure. If they feel that deal is going to be done, then I don't see any reason why there can't be certain things written into it, certain caveats given, certain assurances and guarantees financially. Things can be done in that way. They've been done before. They were done at Manchester City when they were bought, and they can be done again at Newcastle United. But there's no suggestion that's on the cards at the moment.
Okay, Brian, I'm sure you cracked this joke last night. He says, Katie Price for the next manager. She plays with 2 false 10s.
You can't laugh. You can't, Steve, you can't laugh at it 2 nights in a row.
Well, I know, but I'm being kind to the viewer. Brian, 3rd time, doesn't work. I'm telling you now. Liam says, he said, Liam, have you heard anything about the meeting at Arsenal with Nick DeMarco? Says Toon 2020.
It's all very quiet at the moment behind the scenes. And although in a lot of ways that can be quite disconcerting for somebody like myself who sort of relies upon information, but in another way that can be a really positive thing. So yes, there has been talk of why the meeting took place. I think it's quite self-explanatory, to be honest, because, like I said, there is a lot of things happening behind the scenes. A lot of that information can't be released to the public for obvious reasons. It could have a detrimental effect on certain things that are in play at the moment. And we've got to remember there's a lot of legal battles going on at the moment, and there's a lot of people playing their own games. So I would just be patient. The silence isn't necessarily a bad thing. I know we've said that loads of times in the past before, but I really do believe it this time.
Carl Roberts is making reference to some Company's House documents which have surfaced again. He says, any relevance with the Company's House documents today? Obviously, some familiar names on Company's House stuff again. Is that relevant to the takeover, or don't we know?
I'm just getting. I've got them up here. It's the RB Sports and Media Limited changes on Company's House today, and obviously we know from reports a little while back that they're linked to Canterville Limited, which is sole director is Amanda Staveley. So look, there's been changes today. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to play dumb, and I actually don't know whether it has any relevance at all. There have been certain changes in the last 2 or 3 weeks with regards certain companies that have been linked to the takeover, and a lot of it's just been general housekeeping. But I think it's one worth keeping an eye on over the next few weeks.
Okay, David says he saw a stat today comparing Bruce and McLaren's last 19 games. Bruce's stats were worse. What is Ashley waiting for? He has to get rid before it's too late, and it cost him his £350 million deal and costs us our future. Tim says, do we actually think the deal has a chance of going through? The piracy just seems like an excuse to reject a deal with a major human rights violator. They'll come up with another reason to reject it. I mean, there's always two sides to, how people are feeling. We see it causing massive division on Twitter. Do you think this deal's got a chance of going through? I still believe it's going to happen, and I'm still 100%. I'm sure you're the same, Liam, with what you're hearing.
I've never ever said I'm confident. What I've always said is I'm hopeful, and I do think that has relevance. That comment that could the Premier League just be waiting for the next spanner in the works to be able to blame that effectively, have another potentially legitimate reason, and they can hide the real reasons for rejecting this behind a potentially legitimate one, as per the piracy, which is largely being sorted out in closed doors, behind the scenes. No, I like I say, I'm hopeful. Sources are hopeful, and if they're hopeful, then I've got no reason to doubt them.
Tom Dixon says, do you think Manquillo and Kraft will leave the club?
I think Kraft's got a good chance. I think Manquillo is probably safe.
Okay, Tim Clark, evening all. Do you think that we should take people who are represented by the same agency as Steve Bruce with a pinch of salt, because they probably have got an agreement not to slag off each other's members? Yeah, I mean, look, the comments by Carragher and Neville were a bit of a swing on Monday night, weren't they? You know, there was a bit of a change in direction, and Neville was still going to be pro Bruce. He played with him all those years. He's probably got him on speed dial, but Carragher was a lot more, honest, and it certainly was one bright spot of Monday night, I think, for Newcastle fans, that some of the media finally get it.
Look, I don't want to be too critical, but I do find the same representation, the same age, and that kind of thing a little bit of a red herring. Just because you're represented by somebody doesn't mean you're going to like another person who's represented by them. It's not like there's a bit of an old pals act. People have played together, they'll know each other from football circles. Doesn't mean they all get along. So I think, look, I do think you should take any pundit who claims they know about Newcastle United and say the things that they do, that just take it all with a pinch of salt. I think there was some really, like you said, refreshing commentary on the situation from the Monday Night Football guys. Most of it true, some of it pointing in the wrong direction. Look, because he managed Sunderland, that's why you don't like him. That's a load of rubbish. It's because he's been rubbish. Why Newcastle United fans have totally turned off to him. But yeah, I think you can't. I've always said this on here. The fans mostly know their football club best, and I think that's the type of people you need to listen to in these situations. If fans are saying it's bad, invariably it is. And I mean, I know Aston Villa fans got a lot of criticism for the way that they perceive from the outside in their treatment of Steve Bruce at the end. We're just playing through the same cycle again, and Newcastle United fans have been getting that abuse because he's a well-liked man in football. Find me a football manager in the Premier League who has beef with Steve Bruce and doesn't want to speak to him at the start, or when they shake hands, they look the opposite direction. He's everybody's mate. He's a likeable guy, and there's a lot of people in football like him. Doesn't mean he's great at the job.
I'd like him a lot more if he wasn't manager in Newcastle. James Hughes says, do you see Darlow leaving in the summer?
It's an interesting situation with the goalkeeper, isn't it? Because Newcastle United have probably got a pack of three. When you add Woodman in, how well he's doing elsewhere, that you would say that they've got three first-team Premier League goalkeepers on their books, and there'll be not many in and around the Premier League who'll be able to say that. I think one of them goes. I've always thought it'd be Woodman, personally, simply because there's always been an uncertainty about his future at this football club. And I think Newcastle United, if they sort the contract situation out again, would stand to make quite a lot of money from somebody like a Freddie Woodman. I think, personally, I like Carl Darlow, but Martin Dubravka is the best goalkeeper at this football club at present. And for me, I've said it all along that it's really hard to drop Carl Darlow. But I think it's a bit like...
It's inevitable.
It is inevitable. It's coming, and it's just when. It's not if, it's when. Because you're in a workplace and you might work with 10 people, And you look around the room and you know yourself who's good and who's bad, who's good at this, who's not. And most of the time, you know, in a job, say, for example, in mine, you'll know who's a good writer and who isn't, and who you rate and who you don't. And if somebody's a standout player, a standout writer in that position or whatever for that football club, everybody knows that. And they'll look around that dressing room and everybody in that dressing room will know who the best goalkeeper is at Newcastle United. So like you say, it's an inevitability that Martin Dubravka comes in. Newcastle are in a relegation battle. Do you need all your best players out on the park? Probably.
Martin, good evening. Martin will be doing his own show tonight, Loaded Football with Daz and Chris Hall. Tune in on this channel, 9 o'clock. Something a bit different, nothing to do with Newcastle, all to do with football the world over. So well worth a watch. Tune in at 9 o'clock. He's just saying, what's your points prediction for the next 3 games?
Best of luck tonight, Martin, with the show. We'll be tuning in. Best of luck. Points prediction for the next 3. It's Aston Villa, Leeds, Aston Villa away, Leeds at home, Everton away. Newcastle United need to win one of those 3. I think Leeds is the obvious winnable game sandwiched in between the 2. I wouldn't rule them out getting something at Aston Villa as well, but I think it's difficult to see this Newcastle United team picking up any points from those 3 games. But again, what I will say is that inexplicably under Steve Bruce, Newcastle United have been able to pick up points. We need to hope that luck hasn't run out. And I think a realistic target for a normal Newcastle United side, you'd say you want 4 points out of those 3 games, win 1, lose 1, draw 1. I would be very happy. That's the wrong thing to say. I wouldn't be very happy. But if Newcastle United can keep the wolf from the door with a win in one of those 3 games, if they can do it on Saturday, that would be great. Just get it out the road and there'll be less pressure. But yeah, they need 3 more points. They need 19 more points from the remaining, is it 20 games left in the season? They need 19 points. 38 points in virtually every single season in the Premier League is 3 points has kept you up. So that's double. They need to double what they've got already. And it's hard to see where 8 points are coming from, never mind 19.
Can't see it happening on Saturday, but we'll see. More TV games have been announced, of course. This February fixtures. Crystal Palace at home is an 8:15 kickoff on the 2nd of February, which is a Tuesday night, which means me and Liam will have to move to a Thursday that night. Monday the 15th, a day before my birthday, Chelsea away, 8 o'clock on Sky. And Sunday the 21st is Manchester United away, and that's 7 o'clock, and that's on BT. Wow, what a wonderful February. That's going to completely wreck my birthday, isn't it, with all them bloody fixtures. Michael Hurst, he says, what's your favourite book that you've read, Liam?
That's quite a deep question. Loads of books. I tell you one book that I really, really enjoyed recently, and it was Sayers Tried and Tested, which Steve has a part in. So yes, I will say that one. More than happy to give that one a plug for you there, Steve. But it was a really fantastic read. If you're into true crime, which I'm a massive, massive fan of, whether it's historical, whether it's current, anything like that. Any true crime books really do tick the boxes for me. I'm currently going through a book at the moment, which is totally unrelated to football. It regards the lives of the five victims of Jack the Ripper from back in the 1800s. Little things like that. That's one of my I did history degree at history politics at Newcastle University, and any history book as well is something that I love. But true crime, history, I'm not a massive sport reader, to be honest. Sport to me is something that it's my job. It's something I like. When I like to pick a book up, I like to have something totally different from my vocation and from my interest. So yeah, there's a short one, but I enjoyed the Sayers. It was a fantastic read.
Thanks, and I'll slip the 20 quid in the post. Alan Thompson says, question Liam, the atmosphere at Newcastle's toxic as nobody decent will come. What do you think will happen after relegation, as only the fans believe we're in a relegation fight?
Look, I'm not going to answer that question because I still hold hope that Newcastle United won't be relegated.
Fair enough. There's your answer there. Jason says, Liam, if we go down, does it make it easier for a takeover to happen? I.e., there is no Premier League directors test.
No, because they're largely aligned anyway. with the Football League. So no, it's a myth that really. I've seen a lot of people ask that question. But Newcastle United get relegated, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't believe PIF will want any part of Newcastle United in lower division. But it doesn't make it any easier either because the tests are largely aligned.
Okay, R. Jordan T says, Liam, why all of a sudden are the Guardian claiming Biden will declassify what happened to the reporter in Saudi? It's political games, isn't it? You can believe what you want, really, but a lot of this is, it's outside influences and journalists maybe who maybe don't agree with the takeover, and people are going to write what they want to write.
Look, they're writing it because it was said by somebody prominent, and it is largely true. It could happen. Will it have an impact? Like I said, it didn't have an impact the first time round. There was a lot of noise. Your Amnesty, Jamal Khashoggi's wife, Hatice Cengiz, all that kind of thing. That was largely unwanted noise. But did it have any direct impact on the way that the Premier League put their owners and directors test or the directors through? No, it didn't. Does it form any part of the legal cases that the Premier League are embroiled in with various people connected to Newcastle United? No, it doesn't. So do I think it will have a direct impact on the legal stuff at the moment? No. Should the tests have to be restarted and resubmitted, which we haven't got 100% clarity on at the moment, could the Premier League use it as an excuse? Of course they could. They've used plenty of things as excuses before in this process. But do I ultimately, in my heart, think it'll have an impact? No, I don't think it will have an impact because it didn't the first time round, and we've got to trust that it won't the second.
Yeah, okay. Tim says, unpopular opinion, but in the large scheme of things, I am not upset about the Saudi deal falling through. I don't want MBS anywhere near Newcastle. Tim, respect your decision, mate. Completely respect your decision. Unfortunately, from your perspective, the only deal, as Liam keeps saying, that Mike Ashley is interested in trying to get through is that one at the moment. If it falls through, if it doesn't go through, whatever happens, we've got to hope, as a football fan, and this is one thing me and you will agree on, Tim, that somebody else can come in and buy our football club. Because if not, we're going to have an unwilling owner. We've got a manager who's taken us one way, and that's not up. That's the big concern. But Tim, completely understand your opinion. I wouldn't even pretend to say I know what's going on in the Middle East. What the fallout is between Saudi and Qatar. I've got no time to even look into it and think about it. But, that's my ignorance in that particular situation. But one thing I will say, Tim, your opinion is just as valid as anybody else's. And if that's your feeling, fair play to you, mate, by sticking by your guns. And what will be, as the saying goes. Kevin Young, has Liam heard anything more about the arbitration hearing? 3 question marks. He's definitely frustrated about that question.
Well, I'll just answer it once. So look, things are moving with the arbitration. I think there was a bit of a red herring, which we discussed last week. There was some suggestions that the arbitration people took Richard Masters' quotes suggesting the arbitration hearing had started. When those quotes were put out, the arbitration hearing had not. But yeah, I've hinted at it before. I expect that we'll see some kind of some progress on the arbitration front in the not too distant future.
Terry Armstrong says, I've never been a fan of John Jobe. He says, but if his performance on Monday was anything to go by, would you put this down to Bruce losing the dressing room or just simply having players who don't want to be here?
I think singling John Joe Shelby out with regards to that performance is difficult, but it's not our character. We've seen this version of John Joe Shelby plenty of times before, so I think there's a real problem with the player there in himself. Do I think Steve Bruce has lost the dressing room? I think there's a lot of questions being asked of the manager and his coaching staff by the players. Does that mean he's lost them? I don't think he's lost them, but I think there's a real lack of confidence in the product that they're producing. There's a lack of confidence in the coaching, and I think that's reflecting out on the pitch. It only takes a goal to go in to see the head drop totally. And let's be brutally honest about that Arsenal game. It was all right. They created absolutely nothing, but they didn't really look like getting beat for that first 45. As soon as the goal went in, it could have been 6-0. If Arsenal had turned up the heat and wanted to win that game by handsomely, they could have won 6-0.
I've got to laugh. Paul Foster has just sent us a message on Facebook. Wait till you see this, Liam. This is an absolute belter, by the way. I'll take the question off the screen. Hold on. Hold on. Apparently you crossed the ball and I banged it in. There we go. The bar, that is it.
It is really good. Photoshop.
Oh no,
I
crossed and Liam bagged the goal he's put. Yeah, so there we go. Excellent. So thanks for that, mate. It certainly cheered us up a little bit there, but thanks for your efforts. Yeah, you probably saw me play actually. I would never have bagged a goal. You're probably better off thinking Liam would do it. Terry, good evening, mate. Hope you're well. He says, what do you think of Simon Jordan's rant? Maybe they should play it in the dressing room before the next match. I mean, he loves getting his view across about Newcastle, and whenever I end up on TalkSport with him, he never gives us. Yeah, I've got to fight for me right to speak on there, but I always manage to get my point across. But he loves talking about Newcastle, doesn't he? Because he knows people are going to listen and he's going to get a reaction.
I kind of want to deflect this back to you a little bit, Steve, because I want to ask you a question on it. I would never go on that show if Simon Jordan spoke to me the way he speaks to you. It's like he's got no respect for you the way that he speaks to you. I wouldn't give him the time of day. But what's your thoughts on the way he goes on?
He's doing it to get viewers and listeners, and that's what he does. He's getting paid to do it as well. Do you know what I mean? I quite like going on there and Jim White because I feel like I'm up against it. I get a lot of media offers. As I have done over 25 years, which is part of the reason a lot of people dislike us, because they feel as if I'm speaking for them. I'm not. I'm always giving my opinion when I go on there. I'm not speaking for the fan base because nobody can do that. But when I go on those shows, I always see it as a bit of a challenge. You've only got a certain amount of time. You've got to get your point across well. I don't sit and make notes before it because I'm well versed on what I want to say. But it's the power of the button that they have, which you don't have. And once they think you've made your point, that's it. You know, they cut you off. Jim will have a say. Simon has a say, and you're left really. You hope you can get back in. You hope you've got enough time. But the other day, I knew it was 11:15 I was booked in for. I think I got on at 10:11. You know you're heading towards news, adverts, that kind of thing. You know you've literally only got a small window. So I managed to get my point in, but Simon won that one. The previous one I did with him, I definitely wiped the floor with him though. So you can have days where you can get your point across, and you always know, you get messages, I get tweets, I get messages on Facebook, I get texts off me mates and family who say, that was great, and I know whether I've managed to get the point across or not. But as I say, when I do them, I'm always speaking for, myself. I'm not speaking for the supporters. Nobody can do that. And, it's nice to see this platform in particular given an opportunity to some of the rising stars, I would say, the people who are putting their head above the parapet on NUFC matters are getting the opportunity. Kendall, she's had a couple of appearances now on Sky, and I think she's done really, really well. You've got a couple of old stalwarts in Neil Mitchell and Steve Hasty, of course, who've done plenty of television over the years talking about various fallouts with Newcastle United Football Club. But I hope that other people on the NUFC Matters platform get the opportunity, because it's it's nice to hear a wide variety of opinions. Mr. Cleesby on here today, why isn't somebody like that getting picked up? He's a Newcastle fan. You should put your head above the parapet, and have your say, because, it's what probably frustrates a lot of people that, somebody like Tim will be sitting there who doesn't want this particular deal done with Saudi, yet somebody like me is going on saying, we want this deal. And that's probably something which will wind... I'm not saying wind Tim up, because Tim's, he comes on here and has a bit of chat, and he's been a regular follower of the show. But I can picture somebody sitting at home going, who the hell's that Steve Wraith speaking for me? I don't want this Saudi takeover. And, that's how misconceptions can occur, and that's how people can judge you. So I understand it. I know how the media works, and I've played the media and they've played me, so it's one of those things. But I don't mind doing it, and I see it as a challenge just to answer your question. Alan White says, what is the problem with the takeover? Why didn't it go through? Why hasn't it gone through? They've been talking in the background since August. Alan, you're playing catch up. It's probably best if you watch a few of the shows that me and Liam have done together, and you will get probably a good idea, about why it hasn't gone through. Tim, you never see Bruce or his backroom team having rants on the touchline. There's probably more rants on here. David Little, Liam, to your knowledge, has there been any advancement at all in the last 2 weeks in the takeover?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, John Brown. Liam, can you clarify if Mike Ashley's lawyers are actually doing anything in the background or just leaving it all to poor Keith Patterson? And if they're not, when are they going to start earning their money?
Yes. Again, yes. I'll keep that quite basic and straightforward. Yes, they are working behind the scenes and things are happening. Of course, Keith is the public face. He's taking a little step back today. He's doing the right thing. He's had a lot of stick, a lot of abuse, and he's taken that little step back today just to go back to updating everybody on the news and on things that he feels like he needs out there, and updates on his case and other matters with regards to Newcastle United takeover. I mean, look, he's been getting some really bizarre stick in the last few days. He had a guy on. I spoke to him this afternoon. He had a guy on who was purported to be some kind of accountant, managing director of some company involved in finance, criticising, saying he knows nobody. He's done now. He doesn't know the buyers. Never spoke to the buyers. Never spoke to the seller. Look, I'll tell you, that is all absolute rubbish. Keith's got contacts. He wouldn't be doing what he's doing with he's putting his own cash in, his own time. This is a guy who can earn mega bucks in his line of work doing what he does. He's given all that up to focus on the Newcastle United takeover. He's lost tens of thousands of pounds of potential work through this process. I'm saying tens, probably into the hundreds. He's lost ridiculous figures with regards just putting his time and effort into this, as well as the money that he spent on top of it. So for anybody to come out and criticise things that he's done, I think they've got a real brass neck. I think he's been a fantastic boost. He's given this takeover process a real kick up the backside, which is what it needed at one point. And I see questions down the side here, people asking, what impact do I believe that Keith Patterson's had on this deal? And I think that when the truth does out, and it will out, I think people will realise he's had a bigger impact than anybody could have imagined.
Yeah, and more bread tweets from Nick DeMarco today. Bread. I decided to make some proper sourdough, but the dough took so long to prove. I had to make a quick machine loaf. Then it proved. And I made 2 small real loaves. Takes much longer, but tastes so much better. Now I have 3 loaves. Had to slice and freeze most. #bread. What on earth that means, I don't know. But Mad Mark, he says, Nick DeMarco offering more clues in his bread making today. The bread took a long time to prove today. Like it took time to prove the separation of PIF from the Saudi state to the Premier League. Mad Mark, I see what you've done there, mate. I see what you've done.
I like it.
Tom Dixon says, Liam, when the takeover is done, would the new owners bring Rafa Benitez back to the club, or will they look to a manager elsewhere?
I think Rafa Benitez is absolutely in the box seat to be Newcastle United manager in the not too distant future if the takeover gets the green light. And I know you feel the same, Steve.
Yeah, I do, mate. I do. Matty P says, enjoyed the podcast with Keith from NCSL. In your honest opinion, how much influence do you think he is having on the takeover, and do you think Nick DeMarco can get this done on his own?
People say he's had a negative influence, certain critics. He has had a positive influence. And like I said, there'll be a day, hopefully in the not too distant future, when that story can be told. And hopefully I'll be the man to tell it with Keith and potentially with Steve and others. And look, he's had a fantastic impact. Even if it doesn't go through, he's somebody who can look himself in the mirror and say, I did everything within my power to and get this deal done. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, Rob says, have you ever known a Newcastle manager worse at dealing with the media? His comments about the players' ability were staggering. I can't really forget Joe Kinnear, can we?
I was going to say, Joe Kinnear, like, that was probably the worst of the lot. But Steve Bruce isn't quite at that level, but it is quite confidence-sapping. I would imagine to have your manager say the things that he said in the last 7 to 10 days about his players. For me, it's the finger pointing that really, really frustrates us. If I'm not good at my job and I make a mistake, it's hands up time and saying, look, I wasn't good enough. I didn't do it well enough. It's not the case of, look, I'm going to blame you, Steve. And in fact, oh no, it was Mitch and Hasty's problem that I didn't do that. You know what I mean? You don't start pointing the fingers at everybody else. And he's done it. He said, oh, well, it wasn't my team. And now it's going to be my team. All right, so whose was it then? Well, you've pointed the finger at Rafa, you pointed the finger at the fans recently, and now you're pointing the finger at your own players. It's getting a little bit close to home, and he's going to have to start looking in the mirror himself, Steve Bruce, and saying, am I the problem at Newcastle United? Craig Hope of the Daily Mail said some really interesting things on the local news today. If anybody's seen them out there, check out his Twitter. And it was really, really relevant. Mike Ashley is the big problem at Newcastle United. But that does not excuse or give Steve Bruce a free pass to say, I'm not the real problem. Know that you are also a problem if you're not producing the goods.
Yep, okay. Question for Steve. When you were with Rafa, what was his honest thoughts? Gav, I'm not sure what you mean about his honest thoughts, but in a nutshell, Rafa was great. Fantastic guy to work for. I was working for him away from the club with his team. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there who could tell you exactly what I did. I basically introduced supporters to Rafa Benitez. I was in a privileged position. I used to be able to walk down after the game from my place in the director's box and take fans down to meet Rafa. And he would meet them, win, lose or draw after a game. And it was a fantastic experience for 3 years to be able to do that. I was, nice for Rafa to invite me, and I was always able to take my dad and my brother. Very privileged position, and something which I really enjoyed. And to see the smile that Rafa had for everybody, and the smile that he put on people's faces, and the difference he made to the fan base, getting behind things like the food bank, for example, that goes a long way. It's not just about managing Newcastle United on the pitch. It's about managing it off the pitch and buying into the community, buying into the support, and just, making yourself accessible. I appreciate Steve Bruce hasn't had that opportunity because of COVID and because he wasn't wanted by the supporters. Not just me. I'm one supporter. A lot of supporters didn't want Steve Bruce anywhere near St James's Park. Not because of his Sunderland affinity and the fact that he managed Sunderland and said he'd never wanted to manage Newcastle in the first place. Of course he's going to say that when he goes down there. But a lot of people just didn't want him. It's a massive step backwards. It's going from, a top world-class manager who'd won the Champions League to Steve Bruce, who specialises in getting teams relegated. It's as simple as that. But Rafa, he had a vision, he had a project that was whipped away from beneath his feet with lack of investment from the man who owns the club. I wonder whether he regrets that. I'm sure he does. But that's, in a nutshell, what Rafa was all about to me. Keith Rowe, my favourite books, he says, I'm reading at the moment, are Black and White, No Grey Areas by Lee Clark and Every Boy's Dream, which is mine, of course. Thank you. John, he says, a curious case of Mr. Bruce, slow murder of a football team would make a good true crime book, Liam.
It would, and I might have a go at writing it actually a little bit further down the line.
I'm sure John will design the cover and it'll be online within about half an hour. Wayne Bennett says, how far is ASM away from playing?
That's a really difficult question to answer, because if you're gonna answer it absolutely honestly, I think you'd want a couple of weeks training in the lad. But he could easily turn up and be in the squad within the next week or two. So it's a really difficult question to answer. But as I broke last week, they're really happy with his health situation now, having had some really real concerns about the way the COVID had an impact on the player and his health, not just his fitness, his health in particular. So when he does come back, I'm sure he'll have an impact. I'm sure he'll want to make a big impact at Newcastle United. Because he's been away from the team for quite a long time. And even if the St Maximin that turns up 1 in every 5 games comes to Newcastle United, he could just be the difference and enough to win enough games, create enough spark in matches to get Newcastle United over the line.
We're going to run slightly into extra time with this last one just because of a poll that I actually put up, which Akaz touches on a little bit here. He says, Steve, Liam, have you considered the ramifications of no takeover in terms of supporter morale and future gates? It's now worth thinking about it. And I'd put a poll up which finished yesterday. And when Newcastle fans are allowed back to St James's Park, would you go back if Mike Ashley owned the club? And there it is, over 3,445 votes. And we had, over 80% of people said that they wouldn't go back to St James's Park. That's only, a small amount of people in the grand scheme of things. But with 10,000 walking away, Liam, prior to COVID, and those tickets being given away by the club, is that something the club should be worried about, losing more supporters if Mike Ashley's still there?
Look, I think that the only worry they've got and concern is getting this deal done at the moment. But if the worst case scenario does play out and this doesn't happen, I do think Mike Ashley will go down the line and potentially still look to sell. I still think there'll be a lot of people interested in buying this football club. But if you were to say in a year's time we're all back in the ground, God hope we actually are. If Mike Ashley's still the owner at that point, and we hope he isn't, I think it's going to be a really, really hard sell for any Newcastle United fan to want to go back. But plenty still will. It will be a reduced crowd, I would imagine. And look, for people, it would have a big impact if this was a disaster. It didn't go the way that everybody wanted, apart from some. Obviously, I know there's some people out there listening who don't want the deal to go through in that way, shape or form. But I think it would have a big impact on people's mental health. I think it would have a big impact on their decisions to renew season tickets, buy merchandise. And I think Mike Ashley is staring into a big black hole in Newcastle United. They've been teetering on the brink with the 10,000 giveaways over the last couple of seasons, and I think this is just the only success this would have if it does fall through. It's just widened that gap. And like I say, there may be an appetite at a lot of football clubs in the UK to get back when they get the opportunity, and Newcastle United, I don't see that being the case.
Liam, great to have you on, mate. We've managed to do more questions probably than we've ever done, so that's good. And maybe it's the way we need to continue with this, because we've always got so many people watching, and it's nice for you to get through as many of those as possible. Sorry we couldn't get through everybody's. We've got so many, but I tried to pick out as many different ones from as many different people with some diverse views. Liam, where can people find you and your content?
So at the bottom of the screen when it comes on, it's at Liam J Kennedy 23. Dig me out on Twitter. I've pinned a little post to the top of my Twitter profile, and it's a 20% off subscriptions. As I've mentioned to many people who regularly listen, I don't go in for all that clickbait rubbish. We just work on subscriptions. That's what pays my wages effectively. So with a subscription, you get all the football coverage, not just Newcastle United, my stuff. Plenty of other people, Miles Starford, who you may know out there, Ross Gregory, Jordan Cronin, over to Sunderland, like Rich Minia, Mark Donnelly, Phil Smith, all these kind of people. You'll get all that coverage on the Shields Gazette. It's only a couple of quid a month. And like I say, at the moment, during the transfer window, there might not be a lot of deals going on at Newcastle United, but the Shields Gazette have got a 20% off deal ready for you if you can afford it. Okay, good stuff. Always good to have you on, mate. And back to Tuesday next week. We will be, won't we, with the fixtures? Yeah, because we've got Villa on Saturday. We'll be back to Tuesday next week. God, just trying to keep up with these fixtures. It's absolutely mental, isn't it? The way it's Tuesday next week.
Oh, is it? It is. I think you're right, because we'll play Saturday, don't we? We'll play Saturday and Tuesday. Aye, so. Aye, well, yeah, we'll have to revert back to Wednesday again next week, mate. Unbelievable. Don't forget tonight, the lads, Martin, Daz, the Irish Ant and Deck as they like to call themselves, and Chris Hall will be back at 9 o'clock with Loaded Football Weekly. It's the first, they hope, of many. They're going to launch it on here, they're going to build the content up, and then they're going to take it away and do it on their own channel at some point. So please give the lads some support, give it a watch, and tune in. Well worth watching that programme. I'm sure they've put a lot of time and effort into it. A lot of new graphics. I've seen them doing a little bit of a rehearsal, and I think it'll be an absolute blinder. I'm back tomorrow with the lads, Malcolm and Gibbo. Will be talking Newcastle United, and of course looking ahead to the big game against Villa, and we'll also be back on Friday night, of course, with the three amigos, highly anticipated as always, with of course our new graphics and our tweet of the week and the tune look-alike, etc. So something a little bit different, always looking to improve the channel. Liam, I'll let you get back to the bends. Have a good night, mate. As always, good to see you, and let's hope we're a step closer to the takeover by this time next week.
Cheers, Steve. Cheers, everyone out there.
Take care, mate. Bye.
talking to myself again. But it's easy.